Let's see how are we going to use this function. So up here we can call getNextWord, passing our request. The function returns an option, so we would actually have to match on this option. And in the body, if it is sum, it will actually give us a tuple. So in this tuple, the first element will be the method, because the first time we call it, the first word will be the method. And for the second element, let's just call it request again. And we can leave the body empty for now. If it is none, this means that we have an invalid request and we want to immediately return from the function here. We can return an error, which will be a parse error of type invalid request. All right, this is one way to handle this option, but wouldn't it be cool if we could take advantage of the question mark operator like we did up here with the from UTF-8 and use that for our getNextWord? To be able to do that, first let's call this function again. So we call getNextWord, passing the request. And on the option, there is a method called OKOR. And let's look at what OKOR does. It transforms an option into a result. So pretty much what this will do is it will look at the option. If the option is sum, it will convert it into an OK variant of the result. And the OK will wrap the value that the sum was wrapping. So in our case, when we return sum with a tuple inside, this will just convert this into an OK with the same tuple inside. Otherwise, if this was none, we see that this accepts a parameter, which would be the error, and it will return an error wrapping this value that we pass as a parameter. So in our case, if we get an error, we want it to wrap the parse error invalid request. And now we actually get back a result, which will either be our tuple or the error that we've passed. What's left to do is just add a question mark at the end and assign the result to some variables. So we said that we want to have method and request. All right, this is much nicer than matching like this. One thing to note here is that we are overwriting the request variable. When we reuse an existing variable name in a let statement like this, we are not assigning a new value to the existing variable, but we are actually creating a brand new variable that reuses that same name, and the old one is unusable anymore. This action of reusing the names of local variables is called variable shadowing. Okay, now that we have our method, if we call this exact same code again, it will actually give us the path. Because remember, when we call it the first time, it will return this method as the first result and the rest of the string as the second. So then we pass the rest of the string as a parameter to the same function again, and this will return the first word and the rest of the string. But this is not the entire HTTP request. This is only the first line. In reality, how this would look like is there will be a carriage return and a line feed here, and this will be followed by the headers. But we only want to parse the first line of the request. What we see here is that actually the protocol is not followed by a space, so we can't just use our function to also extract the protocol from the rest of the request. One thing that we can do is actually extend our function, because as we can see, it's not only spaces that are the separators between words, but also new lines. What we can do is we can come down here to our function, and in the if statement, we can check if the character is a space or the character is actually a carriage return. And we have to add another equals here. So now this will actually also work for our protocol, because it will start reading from here and it will see this carriage return. It will return the protocol, and then it will also return the rest of the request that we don't really care about. So if we copy this line one more time, here we will have our protocol, protocol, and we can actually ignore the rest of the request because we're not interested in parsing it. As we've said, we want to only support HTTP 1.1. So here we can check if the protocol equals, or actually not equals, the supported HTTP dash 1.1. And if it's not equal to the protocol that we support, we want to return an error, which would be a parse error with invalid protocol. Okay, we actually extracted all the parts from the request that we are interested in. What is left to do now is actually convert this string into a valid method and figure out how to parse the path and the query string.